Ho, 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 it says I'm live. Greetings and blessings to every one of you. I am your humble servant, I guess, in a way. Your humble host here, Mr. David Nolan, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers. And I greet you on this Saturday evening, the 26th or so of January 2019. I can't believe it's 2019. It just sounds so weird. And it's about 7:53 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I greet you on this Saturday evening, just going through, the headlines for the week kind of thing and looking at folks' updates and so forth. My own observations, the sky and earth wobble. And, it's Saturday. Thought I'd do an update and say hello to everybody. And in the title, I have Earth Wobble first. And, then I've got, Crazy Chaos and then Doomsday again, or Krazy or Tez or whatever her name is, and I don't mean that with disrespect. I just can't remember. But oh, we're all going to die in 12 years or some kind of stuff, and it came out this week. Oh, we're 2 seconds to midnight on the Doomsday clock, and there's doom, 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 and gloom. And look, I'm a prepper. I'm a homesteader. I'm an old hippie that lives in the swamp, and I know what it is to live off the land and so forth, which is almost impossible to do these days, by the way. So anybody that thinks they're going anywhere to live off the land, you got another thing coming. But anyway, you'll be dead within a year if you think that. But to the point, um, about the doomsday thing. Now, it's been brought up just this last week or so since I've done an update, and people are showing that, the scientists are have been discussing that the Earth wobble is getting bigger. Well, I've been reporting on the Earth wobble for over a year now, and it's like maybe science is just starting to catch up with me. And I don't mean that in a braggadocious way. It's just that if anybody goes outside and looks up at the sky, like I've been doing and reporting to you, it's obvious something's up with the earth and so forth. But at the same time, I'm not trying to preach doom and gloom to any of y'all, neither. I'm saying these are natural phenomena, and we don't have much choice except to hang on. Yeah, if you live near the coast, if you live in an earthquake zone, I mean, for example, and they had an earthquake in South Carolina the other day. What? Right next to a nuclear power plant. What? Yeah, a sizable one, South Carolina. And I've been talking to folks about how there's so much pressure on the in the Pacific on the China, Japan, Indonesia side of things, and that there's been so many deep earthquakes, and that energy's been transposing over to the has been traveling east towards us. And I've been talking about, for everyone there's over there, watch Dutch Sense just a couple of times. You'll get the idea. But the idea of this energy under the earth moving, hello, Melanie, blessings to you and greetings to you. This energy is transferring. I've been mentioning several times about down around Guatemala and Costa Rica and Panama Canal and Honduras and all in there. Well, guess what? They've had another series of earthquakes, sizable ones on the Pacific side again in the 4 to 5. I think one of them, but I think it was more down towards South America that was close to 6. There was also a 4 point something on the Caribbean side of South America. I'm sorry, middle. The peninsula from Mexico to South America. Anyway, but there's been a lot of activity there. There was also 3 major earthquakes. Hello, Ice Station Z. Pleased to see you too. There were 3 large earthquakes within 3 days of each other out there in the on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And my ET sources years ago said, when you start seeing a lot of earthquakes out there in the mid Atlantic ridge, y'all need to really just, we can't say anything else but to hang on. It kind of is sort of a precursor to larger changes. Now, the earth is expanding. Let's just set that right there. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but there's a lot of danged evidence that the earth has been expanding from the days when it was just one, when we were a single continent. And so things have transpired over the years. Now, with the earth wobble, that's just kind of making the earth kind of crinkle and crankle all over the place. Now, my observations this week of where Orion and Sirius is, the dog star, I was just literally like jaw dropping. What the hell's going on here? And so I've been kind of waiting. They used chemtrails yesterday and today so badly that the sky is just filled with, an overcast that wasn't there and shouldn't be there, by the way. We just had a front come through. There shouldn't be a cloud in the sky. And there's chemtrail mist all over up there right now. And they were doing it in an odd pattern. Since I'm just kind of rambling on about this, but having a conversation as well. Yesterday and today, I noticed when I went into town yesterday to pay my taxes, they were flying. It was like this, like a wagon wheel, and they were flying off in this direction, and then they would come around, and then they'd fly all the way across, and then they'd let it off, and it literally looked like great big spokes on the wheel in the sky. And as I was going north into town, it was to my west, but to the point though, it was all over South Georgia and probably Alabama, because I live close enough to the Alabama line. And today was almost as bad, except they were crisscrossing more. Oh, yes. Never saw Orion so far north ever. Ice Station, you exactly right. Last night when I was outside looking up through the clouds and stuff on my way home from town and everything, it seems to be a little late. In other words, it should be further in the sky this time of year, just by a bit, time wise, but it was also straight overhead. And when I look out, I look up, and I I've been watching the dog star down here in the south. 3 months ago, it was at this time of night, I could look out my south facing window and I could see the dog star just above my tree line at the edge of my property over there, about 300 feet away. And so prominent, really bright south where it's supposed to be. Now it's way up high. It's like 50 degrees up and too far to the east. It was further west 2 months ago. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but the dog star and Orion shouldn't be swapping places like that unless, the earth has been going through some really wild changes. Now, there's been several of us who've been having a kind of sort of a quiet conversation in the background. Is this proof that we are going into this different dimension? Is this proof that Mother Earth and, I don't know, the energies of Source and alien technology and ET, is this what's showing the effect? Because something's going on. Now, I know the Earth is wobbling. I know the magnetic north and south, but I'm not anywhere near worried about the magnetic part of it. It's whether or not the planet could flip upside down. Well, now here's the trick. In order for Orion to be as far north in the sky, I must have rolled south because Orion should be a little further south. So in order for Orion beings that we stay in the star, the whole star constellations aren't changing on us, that in order for that to happen, the Earth would have had to roll to the south, which means the North Pole is heading towards Siberia. Makes sense. But that would bring Orion further north in the sky. So I'm actually further south, if you will, to the galactic. Uh, um, oh, it's the galactic center. At nighttime, there's a like. It's not necessarily the North Pole, but it's the straight point overhead. Anyway, the zenith, or that's the wrong eclipse, something like that. Anyway, but with that said, we're definitely out of whack, and the moon's kind of. I think the moon's being tugged around with the Earth. And so the earthquakes are still being more frequent. There, I don't know, there are at least 11, sure enough, volcanoes going off, and it's actually more like 19. But, Mount Etna's still putting out some steam. This last report this last week that Mount St. Helens is pushing up. There's lava being pushed up in the lava dome inside. So that tells me that there's a lot of other activity going on. Mount St. Helens is just south of Mount Rainier. And Mount Rainier, there's also had some earthquakes and things going on several months ago. But to the point, though, there's been a lot of stuff going on North Alaska, up around the Arctic Circle up there, and nobody's really been paying attention to it. Now, Dutch Sense, he usually reports on earthquakes around the world, but to the point, there's been a lot of big ones up there. I mean, fours and fives, and I think maybe even a six that went off in like a 3 or 4 day period. I mean, whatever was going on up there, they was getting hammered. But that's just north of the line, if you will. So all the way further south, that energy is going to transfer down through Canada and up through the northwest of the United States. And that energy's got to go somewhere, is my point. There's going to have ripple effects. All right. They've had earthquakes in upstate New York. They had another one up there around Nova Scotia, southern Maine, I think it was, up the East Coast just in the last week. That's on the USGS. There's some other smaller ones too. But there are a couple more in Tennessee that went off, another one in western North Carolina, on the Appalachian side, not too close to the mountains, but still in them thar hills, as they say up yonder. But and then the numerous ones that are going off down there around Haiti and Puerto Rico, them poor folks, they must live in a constant earthquake. They're going off just like every 15, 20 minutes because of the number of them that happen every day. And some of these are like 2.5 to 3.5. Some of them are even pushing 4. So there's a lot of energy going on the earth. And whatever's going on, the earth has rolled south, if you will, for the stars to be further north. That's just an observation. And Ice Station Z, you're observing the same thing. And other folks have made comments and so forth and left in the chat room. We're all seeing the same thing. So I'm not here to preach doom and gloom. I'm preaching, if anything, hey, look, it really is happening. We're all seeing it from our own parts of the world. Who gives a rat's patoot what the scientists say? We are seeing it. And the only way that could happen is if the earth had rolled to the south. Now, Nancy Leader and some of these other folks, and and the Zeta Times and all this, I've been listening to her for years. And at first I was like, oh my God, because I listened to Edgar Casey back in the late 60s and 70s. I was into Edgar, I still am into Edgar Casey, but in the respect that um, I, I I knew his works. I had read 3 or 4 of the books. I knew friends of mine who went to the Casey Foundation and studied. I mean, so with the ARE, et cetera. So a lot of folks don't even advanced research and enlightenment is what ARE stands for in Virginia Beach, Virginia. But anyway, with that said, a little plug for them. But to the point, they have a lot of information, a lot of good healing things. I mean, the things Edgar was known for most, like down here in South Georgia, there's some of these old timers that knew of Edgar Casey when before they knew of his healings and was like, well, Edgar said in his writings, we always kept up with Edgar. If somebody had some rheumatism, and folks were using his ailments, his little balms and so forth that he described for curing other people, and other people were reading it and practicing it on one another. So where he may have reportedly cured one or three or five or even 10 or 100 people with a particular kind of malady or ailment. There were thousands of people who used those remedies on their own ailment, which never got reported to Casey or any of his followers, to um, the ARE Foundation there in Virginia Beach. So, but anyway, Casey said Earth's going to wobble, things are going to change, and well, we can obviously see what's going on. Now, it's interesting that if the Earth has rolled south, why am I so damn cold? Supernatural, hi, how are you there? Milky Way, hi, how are you? Good to see you all. But so if the Earth has rolled south, then why is it dadgum cold down here in South Georgia and fixing to be in the mid 20s in a couple of days? I've been working outside around the yard and the garden, and I've got taters coming up, and I need to go rake up some leaves and so forth and bed them up real good. But I've got some other greens that are coming up, and I've got enough plastic in my garden and all the things to make a little hotbed. So it'll be cold, but I can protect what I've already started planting. And it's a good time to dig your garden up right now and turn the roots up. So if it does get to freezing next week, it'll kill all the roots, and then you won't have near as much weeds in your garden. Little tip from there. But with this something about the doom and gloom, and I mean, folks, we need to discuss about what's going on, and the fact that it is happening. But the doomsday clock is 2 minutes or 2 seconds to midnight, and it's like, what are they trying to pump at us? I'm 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 I say this with in jest, but I'm already scared shitless. Why should they prompt me anymore? I can already see the earth is turning on my own. I don't need you to be pumping the news with doomsday and 2 seconds to midnight, and we're all going to die again. I'm not quite understanding this. There's enough information out there just from just the just we don't need it doesn't need to be pumped up for whatever reason. I guess is where I'm headed with this. But my angel messages the last few days have been okay. When the next time you do a video, Hawkeye, you need to remind people that keep an eye on the chaos, but stay out of it. And I've done a couple of videos in the past if you want to go back through my videos, but there's one video that I talk about where there is a harmony in the chaos. Without being involved in it, you can pay attention to it, but you can still stay out of it, and you can ride the higher frequencies of the chaos without being sucked dry with negative energy, and having them use your loosh over this mess. And it seems like they're trying desperately, last ditch attempts to suck us dry of our energy because we're not falling for it. The light workers community, you all over here. Now, if I read the comments, I'll get off my topic. So I love you all, but I'll read a bit of it. But anyway, in that we need to stay focused on our own core values. In the video I did the other night, and in jest, but I mean this in all sincerity, we are all part of the league of like-minded beings. Simply because we don't believe in this other horse crap anymore. We are whether we actually joined the club or not, we have become a club in itself. And I think we should recognize ourselves. We are part of the league of like-minded beings. And in that we want to have a better tomorrow. We see a better tomorrow. We see how we can make this work. If people stop, trying to preach doom and gloom all the time. I mean, I think about the negative energy that goes into the doom and gloom. And when I just read a headline, I go, crap, man, they're trying to suck my soul right out of my chest, Here they go again with the doom and the gloom. Oh my God. Oh, the magnetic north is moving faster. It's been moving towards Siberia for the last 10 years. Okay. And every so many months or something, they bring it back up again. And my point is that is it really picking up speed, or are they just stirring the pot? And both are probably true, but because we can see that the Earth has slid south a little bit, if you will. But at the same time, as most of us have observed on our own, and from my reports to you, it's still fluctuating. So it's not like we have rolled south and stayed there. Not by a long shot. We're going to roll back up, okay? And that might be when it gets really, really cold. Now, I'm kind of curious, is because when back at the first of the year, I did a video and the ET said, listen, 2019 is going to be some changes and we got some bumps we got to go over, and we're going to stub our toe where it's going to get cold. It may get hot. And the folks down in Australia reportedly, having just terrifically hot weather down there. Oh my God, it's hard for me to believe. But I think there's more to the hot weather in Australia rather than the cold in America, and let's just say the northern hemisphere. I think they're using extreme weather modifications down there in Australia because of the devices that are out there. That's just my humble opinion. But why else would no clouds form and no rain or anything? There's got to be something in the ground, like that place in the middle of the desert out there in Australia that will keep any fronts from moving in and providing what would be, quote, a natural kind of environment. And it would run anybody off that's around in the area because it's too damn dry and nothing can live. So, they're achieving a bunch of things, in that respect. But so there are still some nasty things that are going on. But one of the things my ET, and they're kind of strong at the moment, and they want me to tell everybody is that, listen, don't get caught up in the chaos. Keep an eye on it, y'all, but stay with your core self. Keep your vibrations up because they're going to throw some more trash at us. Now, could the planet flip upside down? Anything's flipping possible, but there's too many things that are in the works that I seriously doubt we're going to flip up like the Nancy Leader group and that it's going to stay there. Well, another planet's going to come in. We should have seen it. I'm sorry. Planet X, I still believe there's something out there, and we probably do have a dwarf star because that's normally how things work in the universe. But is it going to crash into us? Is it going to kill us? And not any more than what our fellow man's going to do to us, what our politicians have been doing for the last 20 years. You want to worry about something? Let's worry about getting these idiots who are still trying to make, oh, the government shut down. Oh, come on, would you? This is children on the playground have better manners than these people do, whether you like Trump or not. This is just shenanigans. I'm just saying. It doesn't matter who's playing. This is worse than kids playing in a sandbox in kindergarten. And we, as a human society, look at this stuff and we go, wait a minute. Well, let's not tolerate it. Let's not put up with it. Let's put our voices out there in a calm response and say, hey, stop this mess. I'm tired of this. You people act like grown-ups, for God's sakes. Nancy Pelosi's supposed to be in her 70s. If she can't understand this, then she's too senile to hold office. And if she does understand it and she's being mealy mouth, I mean, look, I used to be a Democrat. Oh my God, I can't believe that I was on that side ever. Like, what? But, so my paradigm's changed. But to my point, though, we got to stop arguing with this mess. Stop it. Be grown-ups, for God's sakes, and say, okie dokie, let's sit down and chat about this. How many people want to fence in their backyard to keep stuff out? Me, just saying, and all those people who want to talk about how they don't want a fence in our backyard, they got a fence in their backyard. You can bet. Just saying. So, what's good for the gander is good for the goose, etc. I'm moving on out to the planets and things. There was a big asteroid that come in here within this last week in this current update here, and it flew across the sky and it was seen. It may have been in Africa or maybe Australia. Listen, folks, they're coming in all the time. All right, the ones that they've logged, you can probably bet there are 10 times more of those rocks out there than what they have already mapped out. It's just simply a fact of life in the universe. Could one of them big old rocks come in and hurt us badly? Yeah. But we've got a lot of other folks in our solar system right now that's trying to keep that kind of stuff to a minimum. And we have to have faith that we are protected. And even if it hits us, that it'll be okay, that we'll survive it on the other end. And at some point, we're going to end up, I'm going to die one of these days. I hope it's in another 50 years. I'd like to see some stuff. I'm 66 now. Yeah, okay. I'd like to live to 120 or 30 and still be able to get around. That'd be cool. Um, but to the point, though, so I'm not ready to give up. But at the same point, they want us to give up. There are folks my age and younger even who are like already giving up. Like, I don't know. I'm so old and crotchety. And I'm like, no, 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 no. No, no, no. You guys need to back up. They're trying to convince us that we're all sick. And I had a recent visit from my grandson who is learning to be a PT. He's an EMT now and rides, shotgunning in the back, saving people's lives, on the back of in an ambulance. And I have great respect for him because he stayed with me the summer that I had so much trouble. And he literally saved my life. And I was glad to see him after so many years to show up here at my doorstep the other day. And blessings come in many ways, shapes, and forms. And my conversation with him 4 years ago is kept with him. And he passes it along with everyone that he meets. And he sees that. And he's passing a higher realm. He's 25 years old ish. So it's like kudos. And there are other younger folk that I know who have this better idea of a better tomorrow. They're not falling for what even, I don't know, some of the folks in my generation fell for. They're going, no, no, no. Yeah, okay, a new phone. Yeah, but you know what? I just don't see any point in getting a new phone. I don't see what the hype is. It was okay for a while, but they're getting tired of something. Oh, it's the new one. Got to have the. No, they're already tired. Some of these folks are already tired of it. They don't want the next new pair of shoes. They don't want the next new phone. They're okay with what they got. Well, it still works. And I'm like, what? Because 3 years ago you were like, "Whoa, new phone's coming out. I'm gonna get." Now it's just like, I got two of them at the house, and with the one I'm using, and there's nothing any fancier, any better than this one. Why? What do I need a new one for? And other things. So it's interesting to see that folks my grandchildren's age are having an awareness. I was really kind of wondering whether or not it was going to show up on this planet. And I'm proud to say it's blossoming. Oh my goodness. Some of the younger folks that I have, as a director of theater and doing puppetry for 25 years and traveling around, I've met many different people, lots of young folk. I hate to call them children, but, and other folks' eyes, they'd be children. And I saw the spark in these folk back then. And as a puppeteer and a storyteller, I never spoke down to the children. In fact, I always sat down so I could be on their eye level. I never, I hated towering over an audience. It's just wrong. And so when I would speak to each of the other children, not kids, kids are small goats, but anyway, to the children, to the young adults, and I treat them as such. And I always gained their respect. So I've watched this for the last 30 some odd years in my lifetime, and have watching some of these children grow up, and now they have children. And some of the basic things that I spoke about back then with some of these folk, they're carrying on with their children, which would be like my grandchildren's age. And I'm very proud to see that it's really, really beginning to blossom big time, because the more this chaos gets crazy with a K, because crazy with a C doesn't mean doesn't stand out much, but crazy with a K is like, wow, that's really cray, 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 cray. But anyway, in that, so as we watch the craziness around us, the more it's not being isolated. It's something other than being isolated. You take yourself out of the moving picture, but you're still watching the monitor. In other words, I've been on TV before, and on small cast down here in South Georgia, and used to do commentary for football games and so forth. So for a long time. So anyway, I've been in and out of radio business and local television several times, and nothing big deal. But it's just something I wanted to do and got into it. I had other people that would hire me to do videos for them and do shows, and anyway. So I do have some experience in this. So when you go on camera, it's like, all right, so you're doing a thing, whatever the story is or whatever you're trying to present. But then, you can step off camera, but you can still watch what's going on in the play, for example. So as a director, I would, step on stage and show someone how to do this. And then I would step off and say, okay, now show me with the picture. Show me what I just explained to y'all. Show me that. Okay. In your own words, show it to me. And so being able to be in the play and also be the director and watch that play. So you can take I can either be a participant or not. So anyway, in that, I'm using that as a reference to the chaos. You can either be on stage with the chaos and have it all around you and your body's tingling and you want to fight and, or you can stand just off stage and watch all that stuff go by, and you maintain who you are. You maintain your own energy. Doesn't mean you can't be involved or shouldn't be. I'm saying that you keep your energy out of the chaos. There's a difference in there. So, but with that said, though, it's important to all of us at this time. Let's make sure we're maintaining it. Keep an eye on this crazy mess, because here they go again. It's 2 seconds to midnight to Doomsday. Ocasio Cortez, or whatever her name is, she's spouting it off, and I can't remember the number of years, but it doesn't matter. But we're all going to be dead in 15 years or 12 years or some signs. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Maybe you will, but I choose to live on. And one of the things that we need to understand with all this doom and gloom, even if it did happen, what we need to do is make sure that we have our spirit clear. So if some catastrophic event does happen, we're going to go to the other place, the ding, like that. We're not going to have to pay much dues. We will have already paid our dues in this. So regardless of whether or not the world gets blown to smithereens or the planet flips upside down, we still should work on our spiritual side. We still need to keep that intact. But if we, go into the craziness too much, it's going to suck us all dry, because they're losing and they have to get every single ounce of energy out of us that they possibly can. And that, ooh, now I'm not saying that asteroid didn't go into the atmosphere, but I've had ET tell me to go outside, and I've seen stuff come in that blew up and littered the sky from one side of the horizon to the other. And, no asteroid was ever reported. And when I tried to report it, they scrubbed it. And I was like, what? Somebody had to see that mess. I mean, it was giant. Oh, it was you. It never showed up on that anyone saw it, and especially when I tried to put it in twice. But anyway, that happened a couple years ago. But to the point, though, there are lots of things going on that if somebody does report it, they're just scrubbing it, like things that I've reported. But anyway, so with that, that's why I do these little bit of updates. So, oh, that was an asteroid. Was it really? Or was it somebody trying to leave this planet with somebody on it that wasn't supposed to leave and they got blown out of the sky? Just because I've witnessed two spaceships, one shooting the other one down. So I know it exists. And I've seen the debris of these things. So it's like, or is that the case? Just saying. We have to add this other paradigm in there. Now, I'm being told, along with some other folks, and I try not to bring it up too much, but ET's saying, listen, folk, they're really tired of the promises that have not been kept. For example, the chemtrails the last few days, cobalt blue skies in the morning, and within 3 hours in the afternoon, you can't see anything. Couldn't see the sunset. Absolutely. And it was perfectly clear 2.5 hours earlier. Just not right. ET ain't happy with this. And the folks on the ground down here that said they was going to take care of it ain't took care of it yet. And some of these folk up yonder are like, uh, okay, they want to poison us, but what's the deal? What are they hiding? We know that they're manipulating the weather, but my question more is, what are they hiding? Because this spokes of a wheel over South Georgia and Alabama yesterday. What? Just saying, the north and south and east and west and crisscross. No, this was in a spoke wheel pattern. That's a specific thing. It's almost like they're trying to talk to somebody. That's a signal. You know what I mean? You don't just do stuff in a wheel fashion like that was yesterday and today. Something's up somewhere. It's out of the norm. All right. Now we'll see, but there are several other folks who are channeling their higher spirits that are saying the same thing. ET's ready to come down here. We need to make sure that when they are actually seen, that we believe it. Now, I don't mean, just say, let me make this perfectly clear. It's not about bowing down to them. It's about saying, I believe you. Now, if they wanted to zap us, blow us up, we'd already be dead. Let them come down here and help us out. Now, can I prove any of this? No. I'm just saying, but the feeling that I get when I've watched this spaceship down here out my window many times, and I've reported it, which has kind of been absent the last several days, by the way, but it's also been cloudy. Um, but there are other things that I've been led outside that says, we're up here, you just can't see us. And I'm like, fine, I know I know it takes a lot to decloak down here to the third dimension from your higher dimension. And I know how difficult it is. And when it's time for me to see you, you'll show yourself. But here's the other thing that on my part, many years ago, and I talked about this before, but I need to bring it up because the entity that I met in Ohio several years ago when I did the pictures of the petroglyphs in Ohio, that entity has came to me the other night again, and it just spoke its name, and I was like, "What's up? Just want to let you know that we're here." And I was like, "What?" And I was asked to remind everybody. The word came across to me again. There's a single word that I know who it is. It's like, hi, Bob, AI in there. Hi, Bob, coffee break. Here, good 40 minutes. Time for a coffee break. And so accepting ET doesn't mean we're going to bow down to them and worship them, but we should take their advice. Period. Without going into a bunch of glamour and this and that and who's going to do and Palladium. It ain't about that. And what we need to continue with, you and me and the next guy, is we need to continue to spread the fact that we need to look at one another down here on this planet differently. We need to keep this up and allow the people that are waking up, and some would say that are the star seeds that were born 20 years ago, roughly, give or take 5 or 10, but anyway, some would say that, I was part of a star seed population back in the early 50s, and that many of us are awake at this time. I've got some memories that would kind of go along with that, but I try not to sell that because it's just old memories. But to the point though, each one of us has a part in this. So as I've discussed before, each one of us is a shaman. And so, as long as we keep our core values high, especially now, because there's going to be some more chaos politically and all this other kind of crap, there's going to be some more crap that they're going to throw at us. and we need to observe it like, oh, look, there's a headline in the newspaper. Oh, blah, blah, blah's doing blah, blah again. Okay, next. You know, pay attention to the headlines, but just let it go. So and now the moon, several folks that I chat with have discussed that the moon looks like it's been coming up late. And I've noticed, by the way, going back to the planet and other things, but I've also noticed that the sun, the fact that I have a passive solar house, every year I track the sun by just looking out the window right there. You know, all that over here where I'm facing is south. So I know where the shadows on the floor are, you know, and at certain times of the year, the shadows of the sun, because the sun goes down to 45 degrees and then back up overhead normally. So I know by the shadows on the floor about what time of year it is. And also I've got a little solar solar clock. That's not it. Anyway, it's a solar clock. Yeah, that's not the word for it, but um, and so I can see by where the shadows are in my window what time of day it is by the sun and compare it with the time on the clock. And it varies as much as an hour either way in one day's time. It comes up an hour early, 2 days later, it's an hour late. And I mean, like, seriously? I mean, seriously? And I did some reports on it a couple of years ago, but it's been so cloudy with the chemtrails that they put in. I can't get an accurate reading. I get an approximate, but the shadow's really fuzzy because of all the clouds. So I can't get an accurate sundial. That's the word. Thank you. I heard it before I read it, iStation. Thank you, Zed. That was great. I did. I heard it in my head before I read it. That was great. But to the point, though, so it's like, it's been average, you know. But to the point, from my own observations, it's been late or early. I'm like at 7 o'clock in the morning, the sun's supposed to be up, but it's still dark outside. What's going on? Oh, well, the sun's supposed to be up, but it ain't. Yeah, but well, then all of a sudden it's up. Well, who's going to complain and sit there and go, my watch says the sun was 15 minutes late yesterday coming up. Well, I can see it in the window from what the shadows are as a sundial. Thank you, iStation said. But anyway, so but this is important. Now, what is this? I think this idea of stirring up the pot again with the doomsday. I don't know what they're trying to convince us of. I'm just curious, and I just want to throw that out there for you to conjugate and ponder as to whether or not you're being suckered into something again. Now, I'm not talking about anybody's YouTube channel or whatever because they're reporting on what is current. My point about what is current is that it is coming back into the news again. Not that certain people are reporting it, not my point of view. That's not it. I want you all to be perfectly clear with that. I mean, the topic is returning. I mean, Pastor Paul Begley, for example, he's back into this thing again. And it's like, well, 2 years ago, you were doing the same thing. And, and 2 years before that, or 6 months. So there's this repetition of things. And I want to question, nobody's really spoke about it, but, they talk about temples and things and this and that. And there was a report that came out around the 15th of January of this year that the Roman police went in and took over the Vatican or something. And I did some checking and I couldn't find any reference to it other than two blogs. And I checked out different kinds of Italia, Roma, and different, publications in Italy and couldn't find anything about it. However, what I did find that was really kind of like scratch my head weird is the fact that on the 15th of January, the Mormon Church, the Church of Latter-day Saints, opened a temple just down the block from the Vatican. And I was like, what? And of course, they call it a temple. So, not to cut anybody's religion, ain't about that, but what? Why the Vatican? Now, here's the thing, the reason I bring this up. Now, I've known several folks who are Mormon, we're Mormon, however you want to put it, and that the records they keep. And we all know that the Vatican keeps all kinds of records on all of us for all kinds of crappy reasons. Um, but to the point, hey, Amazing Grace, hi there. Um, did you get my email, by the way? Um, anyway, um, dang, got off topic. A temple opening up near the Vatican. Well, we could all say that, I would agree that the Vatican has become a temple of Satan. Yes, I did. Okay, thank you, Amazing Grace. Um, I hope you understood. Thank you. Sometimes, when you respond a certain way, people are like, what? They want to take offense to something. And I hope there was no, anyway, just want to say that face to face with you, if you will, about that. So, but anyway, but it just curious is they opened the temple, and from the Italian news, they were like, a temple opens up, woo, next to the Vatican. And over here, did anybody hear about the big Mormon temple opening up over down the road, 2 blocks away from the Vatican? No, not really. Um, and my thing about that is it has to do with genealogy. The Mormons are really into the genealogy and all of these things. Why would they need a temple down the road from the Vatican? Because the Vatican's into the same, just a correlation. I just scratch my head and go, why do they feel it's so important to have a temple in Rome down the street from the Vatican? They spent a lot of money on it too, by the way. So just saying, just curious. But it's almost like, what? Now the talks of the third temple being built and stuff, and who's going to build it and all this. What I found interesting was they kept referring to it as the temple, not church or temple. And I was like, what? This is the third something. And there was one of the articles I read referred to the third temple that they had built or something. And I was like, now that's odd. The third temple, Bible, Jerusalem, blah, blah, blah. But they kept referring to temple as the third of something, maybe like the third temple around the world. I can't remember that part. But what I remembered was it was the third. And I was like, the third temple? Is that like some kind of weird hidden meaning? Just saying. Now that's you can go check it out yourself. January 15th of this year in Rome or the Vatican or whatever. So the Mormons opened up a temple. So just wondering what kind of move is going on there. Okay, the next little update. The weather is we probably, for those of us in the United States, we know it's pretty damn cold out right now. It's probably about 42 degrees outside right now here in South Georgia. And I gathered up some firewood today, and we're supposed to be in the low 20s in a couple of days here. So, but it normally gets this cold about this time of year down here. So I'm not really seeing it as being exceptionally cold. It stayed in the 20s for almost 2 weeks down here a couple of years ago. We like to froze. Us folks who were only used to it for 2 or 3 days had to spend 2 weeks in it. I like to froze my took us off. But anyway, I'm more prepared this year. And the hurricane left a lot of trees too, by the way. So that was sort of nice, but not. But anyway, there was something else. Hang on. Let me take a sip of coffee. And there was one other thing I wanted to. One of the healthy things that Spirit wanted me to refer you all to was, if you haven't been taking your baking soda, and if your potassium is low, and I spoke to my grandson the other day, and I was saying, about salts and this and about your pH, and he goes, well, Pops, he said one of the first things we do when we put somebody, when they get them inside the ambulance and on our way, we always get them a potassium sodium potassium, whatever. I can't remember the name of it now. And then the other thing was, is, and he go, and he stopped and he thought about it and he goes, both of those, especially with somebody with diabetes, when he was talking about pushing, with a syringe into the veins. He said, when we push this thing, it helps the body to expel these other things and help to absorb the whatevers. And he looked at me and he was kind of looking up and he was going, you could see the wheels turning. He goes, "Oh my God, we use it every day in medicine. The pH." He said, "It's important that we push someone's pH and get their pH up as soon as we get them into the wagon." And I was like, "What?" "Well, yeah, when we hang a bag, it's got potassium, and we want to get your electrolytes, and it's got and it's and." But as he thought about it, and I was saying everybody needs to take a teaspoon of baking soda and some water or something. I always add baking soda on the top of my coffee. It breaks the acidity down on my coffee, and that's one way of getting some baking soda every day. And when I don't have baking soda in my coffee because it tastes weird, that's like an oddity. I've gotten so used to it now over these years. But one of the things is that make sure that your pH is up, because there are so many viruses right now with the cold, and that all of us, across most of the nation, we're in, it's much colder, the damper conditions, and so viruses and things can get inside of us that won't get away. But all of these viruses need an acidic base, so do yourself a favor and brush your teeth with baking soda. That's one way of doing it. You'll absorb enough through your gums and the inside of your mouth, and it to me, it's like it really makes your mouth feel a lot fresher than any kind of toothpaste. But you're doing a double whammy there. You're actually getting swallow a little bit of it, and it ain't gonna kill you. But make sure it's the clean, sure enough, I can brush my teeth, not kitty litter kind of baking soda. But creators saying, please, during this time of all these other energies and things, make sure your body, if you can't do anything else, you can take baking soda once a day and it will help you. Another thing too, and not necessarily at the same time, but they're also saying, apple cider vinegar once a day, a capful, a teaspoonful, a tablespoonful. Just now if you do a lot of salads or greens or something like that, you can add vinegar to your like this time of the year for us, collard greens, turnip greens, things like that. Well, use apple cider vinegar and with your greens. After they're cooked and you're served, you put a little bit of vinegar on them. Oh, good. Ness, it helps bring out the flavor of the greens. But to the point, though, so folks that I knew into their 90s who like ate collard greens all the time always had red wine. I'm sorry, not red wine, but apple cider vinegar, not the regular kind, not the white. And that some of these folks lived into their 90s, and it was like, what did they do in their diet? They did old remedies. They had little bottles of turpentine and would literally take a little bit on their tongue every day, and they have, Margaret, where's my turpentine? They, some of the farmers who outlived out, they literally had a pine tree that was scored, that they'd go out and literally tear a piece of the pine tree bark off that had some turpentine in it, and they just put it in their mouth and kind of rolled around in there. And it's like, so many people don't even understand this kind of things, but old timers knew that. I mean, old timers down here where I live, there's a clay pit between me and Cairo, Georgia, and the people go there. They mine this clay. It's between a white and a red clay. They mine it. Some of them sell it, and they eat this clay. Eat it. I'm talking about eat it. Dig it out. Eat it. And but they've been doing this for a long time, long before anybody said, well, but that'll help take the heavy metals out of your system. And I mean, I knew this 20 years ago. And people were like, well, don't you know about that place over there? They call it the clay pit. And I was like, you mean the clay pit? Yeah, that's where we all goes down there and gets us some clay, and I'm like, and what do you do with it? Well, we eats it. Well, I dug my club. I've been here for 35 years. I dug my well 3.5 foot square, kind of 20 feet deep into clay. I'm already, I, every time I drink water, I'm getting clay in the water. And so I don't have any heavy metal kind of issues, it doesn't seem like. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't, but I mean, I don't even have to go out and buy this stuff. But so what I did naturally here on my property, and what the old timers used to do, they had shallow wells into the clay, and so they always had mineral in their water, always. Now the deep water, it comes out, it's so clean. It's sometimes the water around here, it's there. There's no smell, there's no taste, and it's like, but but it's deep water, but it has no taste to it. But now, like my shallow well here, if you can call 22 feet shallow, I throw a bucket down in there and pull some water out, and drink it with a dipper like they did in them old days. And it's like, man, that water, man, I'm sorry, but there's just something about it, that it just tastes good. But anyway, I get whatever minerals as that naturally because of what I planned 40 years ago on this place when I started homesteading. So I planned for this a long time ago, and I've just continued to live it. But when I notice other people, what is different in my lifestyle versus theirs? Well, I have a well that's 20 feet into the clay, and the water comes out, and sometimes it's way too much clay. But at the same point, I look at it and I go, eh. So I let it settle for an hour and come back. The mud will settle to the bottom, and there's some people paying good money for that mud, and it's like, okay. But anyway, it just looks weird, especially the red clay. But anyway, I digress. But so for you, though, in your area, wherever you may be, creators saying for folks, try to find the natural remedy of things. If you can find a pine tree, if you can find pine needles. Now, I was listening to Drake and Ken Dunt and so forth. And one of the things that you do is if you want to make a tea out of pine needles, what you do is you got to know what you're doing. And you don't really bring the pine needles to a boil because you will take out too much crap out of the pine needles, if you will. Now, but what you want to do is you want to heat the water up to boiling and then let it stand and then add your pine needles. Now, green pine needles will give you a totally different flavor than if you pick up a bunch of brown ones. Okay. But the bottom line is that pine needle tea is an easy way to get turpentine in you. And turpentine has been known for centuries for all types of curatives of things and is good especially in natural forms. Now, there are some forms of folks out there, and you can buy digestible turpentine. Go to a drugstore that's been open a long time and ask them if they got any turpentine. And they usually sell little bottles like that. It's kind of expensive, but you only need a little hit of it. You only need a little bit. But the thing is, if you got pine trees around your house and eat Scotch pine, if it's pine, it's a pine. Now we got the great southern pine tree down here and the slash pine down in my backyard. But I've also got two other different kinds of pines around here too, as well. But the Native Americans realized that a long time ago in the stories about creation, that with sickness, Creator also gave us the means to help us. And so one of the things that happened was that, and why coniferous trees, evergreens, are more special in the Native American culture is because they were promised by Creator that regardless of the time of year it was, even in the dead of winter, there would be greenery. There would be some kind of tree that would survive. And so if you pick a pine tree or that that genre, if you will, that the sap from it, making a tea, not a strong tea. You want a really weak tea. Some people in the Boy Scouts was like, ooh, let's all make pine needle tea. And it's like, oh my God, make you want to puke. And, No, but if you just put and let it steep, you take a couple of little bit of green pine needles and just drop them in there to give it a little bit of flavor. You know, it's to help with the water instead of just drinking water all the time. And if you got a little bit of honey or something, that's the other thing that I advise folks to do. Keep honey on hand; it never goes bad. And it's always better for you than any kind of other kind of sugar because of the medicinal qualities of honey. And if you ever get cut in the woods or you can't get to a doctor, making a patch with honey and molasses, and by the way, a little bit of baking soda to help make a paste, makes a wonderful poultice for scrapes, cuts, things like that. I mean, it's literally saved my life to keep me from having to go to a doctor. And I've had some, I'm accident prone and for many years, and I've had some really deep cuts, and should have went to the doctor and didn't. And but because it was more of a, well, I'm not bleeding all over the floor, so let's see how good I can do. And within 3 days time, there's just a line there and a sore spot where I most people have taken a week and you'd had to go back and get the stitches out. So, I'm a tough old bugger in that respect. But at the same time, I've learned some of these old techniques. Like, if you're out in the woods and something happens to you, put pine tar on it. It'll caught, you can cauterize with it. And it's like an astringent. If you need a little pick me up, a little bit goes a long way. So, but anyway, but creators saying that, folks need to go back to some of the old traditions. Instead of trying to buy it off of Amazon, go outside and find some of these things. If you're anywhere near the country, it might do you good to drive out in the country to go find your own clay pit, for example, or maybe some mineral water or some true spring water or something like that. But to the point, though, do yourself a favor and do as much as you can with what Creator already gave us, what Mother Earth already gave us. You want to get close to Mother Earth, then partake of the things that are already here. And I'm being told at the moment, and I was a couple weeks ago, I'm going to do a small series on edible plants, medicinal plants. I've been studying this for the last 45 years. I got many books on it. I've got a lot of personal history with some medicinal plants, the types, and so forth like that. And I'm sure my idea and some of the things that I've learned will probably be different from others, but that's okay. But it'll be one, I've got, I don't know, maybe 10 different books on different kinds of plants and medicinals and so forth like that. Plus Native American traditionals and just some old folklore, some of the old timers around here. That now I'm an old timer growing up town here, just some of the things that they used to do back in the day, because there wasn't a doctor they could get to, I mean, that was horse and buggy days. So I know many of those folks who grew up in horse and buggy days, and their grandparents. But anyway, some of the history down here in the South. But that said, so what's going on with the plants? Well, we're coming around the curve right about now. We got some heavy duty. Human resin the other day, and I mean it was spiking off the chart. Today it's been a little on the mild side. We've been getting some really heavy duty human spikes. Now the other thing to bring up to you all that I've been watching, and I just want to update you on this too. When you look at the human chart around the 24, 25, 22, my fluctuates down up and down. There is a serious hum in the background. And there are a couple of other freaks about a month ago now, down about 32 to 36. Man, I mean, it was right all the way across. Wasn't spiking. That freak was obviously there. Now, whatever's going on with the cosmos, and ET says that we're still getting some big cosmic waves coming from the galaxy, and that these things are coming in, and we just need to hang on to our little rubber inner tube and ride the waves because it's about the best thing we can do anyway. And be prepared energetically to not get caught up in the chaos. Stay focused. If I know I see some folks out there, and I continue to pray. You know, they're trying to channel other entities out there in the universe. And ET is continuously saying, stick with your own spirit guide. Don't go wandering around, please. Be smart, be capable, and stick with your own angel. Don't go out looking for anybody else because there's too much calamity, emotion, and so forth in the universe. Also, the energy changes that are fluctuating right now. If you're new to something, you're out there banging around, and you get hit by a certain frequency or something, then something could definitely be causing issues in your life. And the thing is that if you're away from your core and meaning your own higher self to go tinker around and look in other areas, then you lost your energy, wasting in another place. So there are a lot of different reasons other than the fact that you're dealing with a dangerous rap right now, and you shouldn't be doing it. Stick with who you know. Don't go on there asking anything else right now. Later on, maybe. And if we do this, and it looks like everything's going along the plan because more people have woke up. And the higher the vibration of the planet is obviously changed because people are just treating one another better, which is a good thing. But at the same point, you know, we need to understand that in the future we may not have to handle other entities, and they're going to be right there to talk to. So stick with your higher self, stick with your guardian angel, stick with your what you know. It will guide you further on right now as we plunge through this vast darkness that's around us right now. So that's basically it. I actually went longer than I thought I would, but there was some more information involved in there I wanted to share with y'all. So I want to read some of your comments. See what's up. I lost my glasses again. And 9 o'clock, time to go. The honey nerve. Spike. I've avoided getting into the computer for a while. Says supernatural, but almost feel like I'm gonna have at some point. I will avoid it at all possible. You know, super. I say the same thing. Ice stations, that will be appreciated. I'm guessing that good. Benton night clay, that's part of supernatural. The adipose clay, all different kinds of white clay around here. Supernatural says that's been on my main last 2 days to make and having alkaline water and getting the natural salt as well. Absolutely. And they're just saying, you know, there's simple ways that we can take care of ourselves and that we should. You know, I mean, there's just certain things that are just really simple to do, and please do them, you know. Michelle, if you're still here, what about baking soda? What should we take? We just take regular baking soda, and I take about a quarter teaspoon, and dump it on top of my coffee grounds before I make my coffee. But also, you just I always wet brush and just kind of dump it down in the baking soda, brush some teeth with it, and then whatever's left over, you know, I squash around, but you can get it that way. Okay, you did. Okay, that was going back up. What? How about the Milky Way? Hi, everybody. Michelle, natural. I know many of you dropped out already. Sundial, yes. Angie, I see. Okay. Milky Way's Melanie is going to talk about AI. She used to work in the info sector. That sounds like great. Week after next. Okay. Yep, all the programming. And since you brought it up, what boggled my mind lately is the moon being sideways instead of vertical. Exactly, race. That's a combination of the Earth wobble and the moon, by the way. Things are being amplified, absolutely high station. Wacky times, absolutely, Michelle. Oops. Yeah, Vatican City is only 93 above sea level. Yeah. Mud pie. Yeah, absolutely. Been getting some lion mushroom as well. Audio gremlins a little or a lot on my end or yours. I've been talking nice to Bob here lately. It doesn't look like it has been too much on my end. It isn't. But I've got one of those super fast DSL lines that are supposed to. Don't mean that my thing. The honey nerve. Oop. Feedback. Is it still echoing? That's interesting. It shouldn't be. But I see Pamela and Deborah breaking down. Hello, Michelle again. All right, so if I'm having it still is. I'm still getting an echo. That's interesting. All right, nothing else on. Well, I'll end the echo here. Pamela, nice to see you. And it's getting worse. That's weird. Okay. Bob didn't like me after all. All right, so we'll say for prayer out of here. May all of you accept and receive the greetings and blessing, the healing and the knowledge of the Creator. May every single one of you continue to spread this good energy into every one of us. Keep a hold of your energies, y'all. These energies going up and down. Robot, space. Absolutely. It's funny to me. Thank you very much. Well, if I'm sounding like make it even worse. Hello. Anyway, thank you very much. I love you all much. Thank you for all of your participation and keep the energy going within you. And if you ever think you're feeling alone, just remember that we're all part of the club. We are that like-minded being, and we are who we are. We'll be that way. Love your Milky Way. Thank you, brother. Yes, they are. Energies all over the place lately. Thanks for sharing tonight. As always, I love you all, and I hope you know that here through my there you go. But seriously, I do love you all and prayers always. And I think we're winning. I think we're winning. I see the progress. So the prayer is very powerful and triplicate. Absolutely, Michelle. Absolutely. I accept and receive the healing from the source. I accept and receive the healing, the knowledge, and the wisdom from source. I accept and receive the healing, the knowledge, the wisdom, and all the benefits from the universe. Thank you all very much. Next time, exit stage left. Suffering, succotash. Exit stage right.